All right, so today we're diving into something pretty mind-blowing. How do you lead a team when some members might not even be human? We're talking AI teammates.
It's a fascinating shift.
And how this is changing the very definition of teamwork, and more importantly, motivation.
Definitely. And one that's happening right now, not in some distant sci-fi future.
Right.
The way we understand and approach motivation needs to evolve along with these new team landscapes.
And that's exactly why we're doing a deep dive into this paper, The Future of Motivation in and of Teams, from the Annual Review of Organizational Psychology and Organizational Behavior. But don't worry, we'll extract the gold nuggets for you.
Yeah, the researchers really lay out a roadmap for navigating the future of teamwork. They start with a fundamental question. How is motivation even defined in this rapidly evolving context?
Okay, let's unpack that. So how do they define motivation, especially when we're talking about teams that include AI?
It boils down to goals. How individuals and teams choose them, strive for them, and what drives that process. Think of it as the energy that propels us forward, whether you're a human or potentially a sophisticated AI system.
So the basic principles of motivation still apply, even with AI in the mix. That's good to know. But how does the research address the fact that teams themselves are changing so drastically?
They acknowledge that the very definition of a team is expanding. Beyond just a group of people sitting around a table, we're talking about intricate networks, multi-team systems responding to global crises, people juggling memberships in multiple teams, self-managed teams, remote teams spanning continents, and of course, those human AI teams you mentioned.
Yeah, that's a lot to wrap our heads around. So where do we even begin to understand motivation within these complex new team structures?
The paper uses the Chen and Confer model from 2006 as a framework. It's not about getting bogged down in the model itself, but rather using it as a lens to understand how motivation operates on individual and team levels and how those levels interact.
Can you give us a real-world example of how this model might apply? I'm all about making these concepts practical for our listeners.
Sure. Imagine you're leading a product development team. Using the Chen and Confer model, you can analyze individual motivations, like a programmer's desire for challenging tasks, or a designer's need for creative freedom, and see how those align with team-level goals, like launching a successful product.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where individual and team motivations reinforce each other, even when you have different personalities and work styles at play.
Precisely. The model helps you create an environment where everyone feels driven and engaged, contributing to both individual and collective success. But as the paper highlights, this becomes even more intricate as the team landscape itself shifts.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's delve into some of these specific team structures the paper explores. What are some of the biggest challenges and opportunities they highlight?
Let's start with multi-team systems, or MTSs. These are groups of teams working together towards a larger goal. Think of a complex project like developing a new vaccine. You have research teams, clinical trial teams, manufacturing teams, and marketing teams.
Wow.
All needing to be on the same page.
It's like a giant puzzle where each team has a piece, but those pieces need to fit together perfectly for the big picture to emerge. But how does that impact motivation?
That's where it gets interesting. The paper emphasizes that motivation in MTSs exists at multiple levels, individual, team, and the entire MTS as a whole. You need to ensure goal alignment across all those levels so nobody's working at cross purposes.
So it's not enough for individual teams to be motivated? They need to be motivated toward a shared objective that benefits the entire system.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheels, right?
Exactly. A leader in an MTS can't just focus on motivating one team in isolation.
Right.
They need to think about the bigger picture and how to cultivate a sense of shared purpose and commitment across the entire system.
Now, another trend the paper explores is multiple team membership. This is becoming increasingly common, right?
Absolutely. Think about someone working in a hospital setting. A doctor might be part of a physician team, a research team, and even a hospital administration committee, all at the same time.
That's a lot of juggling. I can imagine how that could lead to motivational challenges, trying to prioritize your time and energy across so many different teams.
Definitely. The research highlights how important it is for leaders to acknowledge the complexities of multiple team membership and provide support. This could mean helping employees prioritize their goals, providing clear expectations for each team, or even simply acknowledging the potential for role conflict and offering resources for managing it.
It sounds like clear communication and support are key in these situations.
Exactly. And leaders also need to consider the impact of multiple team membership on career goals.
Oh, interesting.
Why is someone choosing to be on certain teams? Do those teams offer opportunities for growth, exposure to new skills, or alignment with their long-term aspirations.
That's a really insightful point. So it's not just about being motivated within each individual team, but also about how those teams fit into someone's broader career trajectory. This adds another layer of complexity for leaders to consider.
Absolutely. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about self-managed and self-formed teams. These teams have a high degree of autonomy, which can be incredibly motivating for some. They essentially choose their own adventures, so to speak.
That sounds appealing. What are some of the unique motivational considerations for these types of teams?
Well, think of a startup company where the founders are incredibly passionate about their vision. That passion can be contagious, motivating the entire team to work towards a shared goal.
I can see how that energy could really fuel a team's drive, but what happens if the founder's vision isn't clear, or if it clashes with the team's values?
That's a crucial point the paper raises. When the founder's personal goals aren't aligned with the team's, it can lead to confusion, conflict, and ultimately demotivation. Leaders in self-managed teams need to be incredibly mindful of this dynamic and ensure everyone is truly rowing in the same direction.
It sounds like a delicate balance of autonomy and alignment is key in these situations. What about teams that work across different locations, especially with the rise of remote and hybrid work?
That's another big one. The paper dives into the unique challenges of building and maintaining motivation when team members are geographically dispersed.
I can imagine that trust becomes even more crucial when you're not interacting face-to-face regularly.
Absolutely. The research emphasizes that building trust is paramount in remote teams. You need to be more intentional about creating opportunities for connection and communication, whether it's through virtual team building activities, regular video calls, or even just taking the time to check in with each other on a personal level.
So it's about going the extra mile to foster a sense of community and belonging when physical proximity is lacking.
Exactly. Leaders need to be creative and proactive in their approach to building trust and connection within these virtual and hybrid teams. But perhaps the most disruptive and potentially game-changing element in the future of teamwork is the integration of AI.
Now, this is where things get really interesting. How on earth do we wrap our heads around motivation when we're talking about human AI teams?
Yeah.
It feels like we're stepping into uncharted territory.
It definitely is uncharted territory, but the paper offers some thought-provoking insights. One of the key questions they raise is what motivates humans to work alongside AI in the first place?
That's a great question. I can imagine some people feeling threatened or intimidated by the idea of having an AI teammate. So what does the research say about this?
The paper suggests that humans might be motivated by the increased efficiency and the ability to tackle more challenging goals that AI collaboration allows. Think of it as having a super smart assistant who can help you do your job better and faster, freeing you up to focus on more strategic or creative tasks.
That's an interesting perspective. It's not about AI replacing humans, but rather augmenting our capabilities and helping us achieve things that wouldn't be possible otherwise.
Exactly. But there's another fascinating aspect the paper delves into. The idea that AI could actually be used to enhance team motivation.
Hold on, how is that even possible? I'm picturing an AI cheerleader on the sidelines,
Yeah.
pumping up the team.
Well, not quite a cheerleader, but imagine AI systems that can monitor team dynamics, identify potential conflicts or communication breakdowns, and even suggest strategies for improving collaboration. It's almost like having an AI coach on your team, helping you function more effectively.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But how do we even begin to build a truly integrated human-AI team, where humans and machines are working in sync, sharing goals, and understanding each other?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's one that the researchers acknowledge needs a lot more exploration. We're still in the early stages of understanding the nuances of human-AI collaboration, and the motivational dynamics are incredibly complex.
It seems like we're on the verge of a major shift in how we think about teamwork and leadership. What are some of the key takeaways from this research that leaders should be thinking about right now?
The paper highlights the need for a more interdisciplinary approach to studying and understanding motivation in these new team contexts. It's not just a psychology problem anymore. We need to bring in experts from fields like computer science, sociology, even philosophy, to grapple with the complexities of human-AI interaction and the ethical considerations involved.
It's a fascinating and rapidly evolving landscape.
Now that we've set the stage, let's unpack some of those specific team structures we touched on
Okay.
before and really dig into the motivational implications for each one.
Okay, I'm ready to get granular. We started talking about multi-team systems before. You mentioned that motivation in MTSs operates on multiple levels, which adds a whole new layer of complexity.
Exactly. You can't just look at individual or even team-level motivation in isolation. You need to consider how those motivations align or don't align with the overarching goals of the entire multi-team system.
Can you give us a concrete example of how this might play out in the real world?
Absolutely. Let's go back to that vaccine development project we discussed earlier.
Okay.
You might have a research team that's incredibly motivated by scientific discovery and pushing the boundaries of knowledge. That's fantastic.
Right. You definitely want those researchers to be passionate about their work.
But then you have the clinical trial teams who are focused on ensuring the safety and efficacy of the vaccine in human subjects. Their motivation might be driven by a deep sense of responsibility and a desire to make a positive impact on public health.
Two different teams, two different sets of motivations, but they're both crucial to the success of the overall project.
Exactly. And then you have the manufacturing teams who are all about efficiency and scalability. They're motivated by producing a high-quality vaccine at a pace that meets global demand.
So we've got scientific discovery, patient safety, and large-scale production, all essential components of a successful vaccine rollout. But how do you make sure everyone is pulling in the same direction motivationally?
That's where leadership comes in. Leaders in MTSs need to be adept at understanding and navigating these different motivational landscapes. They need to foster a shared understanding of the interconnectedness of each team's work and the overarching goal they're all working towards.
So it's about helping everyone see the forest for the trees, so to speak, making sure that individual and team motivations contribute to the collective success of the MTS.
Precisely. Now shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the challenges and opportunities of multiple team membership, which, as we mentioned, is becoming increasingly common in today's workplace.
I'm curious to hear more about this. It's a trend I've definitely observed firsthand, and it seems like it could be a real drain on people's time and energy if not managed effectively.
You're absolutely right. When someone is juggling multiple team roles, it can lead to competing priorities, conflicting demands, and even a sense of being pulled in too many directions.
I can imagine that feeling overwhelmed and burned out is a real risk in those situations. So what can leaders do to mitigate those risks and support their employees who are working across multiple teams?
One of the most important things is simply acknowledging the challenges inherent in multiple team membership.
Yeah.
Don't pretend it's not happening or expect employees to navigate it seamlessly without support.
So starting with empathy and understanding is key.
Absolutely. From there, leaders can work with their employees to prioritize tasks, set realistic expectations, and even provide training or resources for managing competing demands and preventing burnout.
It sounds like clear communication and open dialogue are essential in these situations.
They are. Another important consideration is how multiple team membership fits into an individual's career trajectory. Leaders should have conversations with their employees about why they're choosing to be on certain teams and how those experiences align with their long-term career goals.
So it's about helping employees see the bigger picture and how their various team roles contribute to their professional development.
Exactly. Multiple team membership can be a fantastic opportunity for growth and learning, but only if it's approached strategically and with intention. Now let's move on to those self-managed and self-formed teams, which, as we mentioned earlier, operate with a high degree of autonomy.
These teams sound both exciting and a bit daunting. It's like being given a blank canvas and told to create a masterpiece. Lots of freedom, but also lots of responsibility. What are some of the unique motivational challenges and opportunities in these contexts?
The key here is that the founder's vision and passion play a massive role in shaping the team's motivation. Think of a tech startup founded by a group of friends who are all obsessed with solving a particular problem. That shared passion and sense of purpose can be incredibly powerful in motivating the entire team.
I can see that. When everyone is truly aligned on the why behind their work, it can create a tremendous amount of energy and drive.
Exactly. But the flip side is that if the founder's vision isn't clearly articulated, or if there's a misalignment between their goals and the team's values, it can quickly lead to confusion, conflict, and ultimately demotivation.
So it's a high-stakes game, so to speak. The potential rewards are huge, but so are the risks if things aren't managed effectively.
You got it. And another important consideration with self-managed teams is that the sense of team identity and shared purpose might develop differently than in more traditional hierarchical teams.
What do you mean by that?
Well, in a traditional team, the structure and hierarchy are usually predefined. There's a clear chain of command, Roles are established, and goals are often set from the top down.
So there's a sense of order and predictability, which can be comforting for some.
Right. But in self-managed teams, those structures often emerge organically. It's a more fluid and dynamic process, which can be both exciting and a bit unsettling.
So it's like building the ship as you're sailing it.
That's a great analogy. It requires a lot of trust, adaptability, and a willingness to embrace uncertainty. Now let's tackle the elephant in the room, or rather the elephant in the virtual room, remote and hybrid teams.
I was wondering when we'd get to this. It's such a prevalent way of working now. And I imagine it presents some unique challenges in terms of motivation.
It definitely does. When you're not interacting face-to-face regularly, it's much harder to build those strong interpersonal bonds and that sense of camaraderie that can be so motivating.
It's like trying to build a campfire with damp wood. You can get a few sparks going, but it takes a lot more effort to get a roaring flame.
That's a fantastic analogy. So, what can leaders do to overcome this challenge? Well, they need to be much more intentional about creating opportunities for connection and communication within remote teams.
So it's about finding ways to translate those water cooler moments and impromptu chats into the virtual world.
Exactly. This could involve scheduling regular virtual team building activities, encouraging casual conversations during online meetings, or even simply setting aside time for virtual coffee breaks or after-work social gatherings.
It seems like finding a balance between structured work time and informal social interaction is crucial in these remote and hybrid settings.
Absolutely. Leaders need to be creative and adaptable in their approach, recognizing that what works for one team might not work for another. And another important consideration is the impact of cultural differences on motivation, especially when you're dealing with globally distributed teams.
Oh, that's a great point. What might be considered a highly motivating factor in one culture could be completely demotivating in another.
Exactly. Leaders need to be culturally sensitive and aware of these nuances. This might involve adapting communication styles, recognizing different approaches to feedback, or even adjusting work schedules to accommodate different time zones.
It sounds like a lot of research and thought of consideration is needed to get this right.
It definitely is. But the rewards of effectively managing a globally diverse team can be significant, both in terms of innovation and productivity.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today. From multi-team systems to human-AI collaboration, it's clear that the future of teamwork is anything but static. But before we wrap up, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the practical implications of all this research. What are some key takeaways that leaders can apply right now to prepare for this evolving landscape?
It's a great question, and the paper offers a wealth of insights that leaders can put into action. One of the biggest takeaways is that we need to shift our mindset from seeing motivation as a one-size-fits-all concept to recognizing that it's a multifaceted and dynamic process, influenced by a myriad of factors.
So there's no magic formula or silver bullet for motivating teams in this new era of work.
Definitely not. Leaders need to become much more adaptable and nuanced in their approach to motivation. They need to be able to diagnose the specific motivational needs of their teams and tailor their strategies accordingly.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's about moving away from a top-down, command and control approach to leadership and embracing a more flexible and personalized style.
Exactly. And another key takeaway is the importance of fostering a growth mindset within teams. This means encouraging experimentation, embracing failure as a learning opportunity, and constantly seeking ways to improve.
I love that. It's about creating a culture where people feel safe to take risks, try new things, and learn from their mistakes.
Precisely. And this is especially important as we navigate the uncharted waters of human-AI collaboration. Leaders need to create environments where humans and machines can learn from each other and co-evolve.
That's a fascinating concept, coevolution.
Yeah.
It implies that the relationship between humans and AI in the workplace is not a static one, but rather an ongoing process of mutual learning and adaptation.
Exactly. And leaders need to embrace this dynamic and create structures that allow for it to flourish.
So what are some concrete steps leaders can take to cultivate this kind of environment?
One important step is to invest in training and development programs that help employees understand AI, its capabilities, and its limitations. This will help alleviate fears, foster trust, and encourage a more collaborative mindset.
So it's about demystifying AI and empowering employees to work with it effectively.
Absolutely. Another important step is to create clear guidelines and ethical frameworks for human-AI collaboration. This will help ensure that AI is used responsibly and in a way that benefits both individuals and the organization as a whole.
That's crucial. We need to be thoughtful and intentional about how we integrate AI into the workplace to avoid unintended consequences.
Exactly. And finally, leaders need to be willing to experiment and iterate. There's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to human-AI collaboration. So it's important to try different approaches, gather feedback, and make adjustments along the way.
It sounds like flexibility, adaptability, and a willingness to embrace change are essential qualities for leaders in this new era of work.
They absolutely are. And I think it's important to remember that while AI presents some unique challenges, it also offers incredible opportunities
Right.
for innovation and growth.
That's an important point. It's easy to get caught up in the potential downsides of AI, but it's equally important to recognize its transformative potential.
Exactly. By embracing a growth mindset and approaching AI with a sense of curiosity and optimism, leaders can unlock incredible possibilities for themselves, their teams, and their organizations.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling incredibly energized and inspired after this deep dive. It's clear that the future of teamwork is going to be a wild ride, but with the right mindset and the right approach, I believe we can harness the power of AI to create a more productive, fulfilling, and human-centered workplace.
I completely agree. It's a time of tremendous change and opportunity, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for teams and organizations that are willing to embrace the possibilities.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the future of motivation in and of teams. It's been a thought-provoking and insightful conversation. And to our listeners, we encourage you to continue exploring these ideas. Challenge your assumptions and experiment with new approaches to motivation and teamwork. The future is what we make it, and it's going to be an incredible journey.
Absolutely.